Just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile.
It's such a simple line, but coming from Malcolm-Jamal Warner, it feels like more than optimism. It feels like a philosophy. That quiet strength, that grounded wisdom, that was him. And yet, it's strange how the world waits until someone is gone to finally say how much they mattered. When news broke that Malcolm had passed away in a tragic accident, the outpouring of love was instant. Tributes, tears, and testimonials flooded social media. But where was that energy when he was here? Because if you knew Malcolm, you knew he wasn't just another actor. He was something deeper, a man who stood on integrity, challenged the machine, and refused to play the game that breaks most people in Hollywood. But as tributes poured in, one thing stood out. The beach where Malcolm drowned wasn't just remote, it was dangerous.
First things we saw when we pulled up to the beach, signs in Spanish and English warning people about potentially hazardous conditions. This sign even giving a roadmap for how to escape a rip current.
Which made people stop and ask, why would someone like Malcolm, a careful, grounded man, take his daughter into that kind of water? This isn't just a story about his death. It's about the life he lived, the industry that ghosted him, and why so many people are struggling to believe that this was just an accident. July 20th, 2025. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was in Limon, Costa Rica. He was swimming with his daughter when both of them were caught in a powerful rip current. Surfers rushed to save them. His daughter survived. Malcolm did not. There were no lifeguards on duty. Officials confirmed the beach was flagged as dangerous. It wasn't just some peaceful stretch of sand. It was a location known for strong, unpredictable currents. And that day, nature proved fatal. His cause of death, asphyxia due to submersion. A freak accident, at least that's the official story. But the reaction from the public wasn't just grief, it was confusion, because something didn't sit right. People online immediately questioned the details. Comments flooded in, not just mourning, but filled with disbelief.
It's interesting because when something like this happens, I feel like his legacy is so amazing that even if you obviously don't know him personally, it still hits. Like,
right, of course, because it feels like you knew him. Like, this is one of those iconic shows, iconic roles, and we all grew up off that.
Yeah.
You know, I was sitting around wondering why we wasn't the Huxtables.
He is an honest person, and that media, I hope, will show the respect for him.
Some asked, why would he take his daughter into dangerous water? Others said, no way. He was too careful, too grounded. Malcolm wasn't reckless. He wasn't a stunt chaser. He was grounded, mature, protective, a man who moved with caution and principle. He wasn't out there chasing attention or doing things for show. He lived life on his terms, quiet, intentional, with dignity. One YouTube comment said, he would never put his daughter in a dangerous situation. Another said, I'm crying as I write this. Losing him felt like losing a brother. And maybe that's why this hit so hard. Because Malcolm was rare. He carried himself with the kind of strength you don't see in this industry anymore. He wasn't about drama. He was about depth. And his character left a lasting impression on the people who knew him and those who only knew of him. Just weeks before his passing, Malcolm opened up in a podcast interview with Melissa Ford. It was one of his final appearances, and now it feels like a goodbye letter the world didn't realize we needed. Around the 22:30 mark of that episode, he said something that hits differently now.
So speaking of legacy, what do you hope that your legacy is going to be?
Man, because I'm 54, I think about that a lot. So it's interesting. I remember my mother said to me one time that Mr. Cosby gave you immortality.
Facts. That is very true.
Right? So I know on one lane there's legacy there, but also because my life, those former years were always about life beyond Cosby, right? So I feel like, okay, there's that legacy there, but then because I've had this full life, after that show, there's another lane of legacy that I get to leave, and I'm still working through that.
Not a celebrity, not a brand, a good person. That was the legacy he wanted, and he lived it quietly, consistently, with love. He wasn't out here trying to become the loudest or most visible. He was trying to be the most intentional, the most respectful, the most real. In another interview, Malcolm spoke about what his daughter meant to him. Malcolm wasn't just a successful actor. He was a present father, a protective husband. He didn't flaunt his private life. He guarded it. But in one moment, he let us in.
I talk about them because there are obviously the hugest parts of my life, the best parts of my life, the best decisions I've ever made. But I also, I like to keep them and their identity private. I want people to know that it is possible to be happy and to have love and love really be enriching.
That one sentence says everything. He wasn't just raising a child. He was building a legacy of love. And that's why so many people refuse to believe he would have risked her safety. Because once you understand the depth of how he loved, especially his family, it's hard to imagine him being careless, even for a second. After The Cosby Show, Malcolm had options, but he turned down the roles that made black men look cartoonish. He said no to dresses, no to coonery, no to clown acts. He stood tall, and because of that, the industry labeled him too serious, too mature, not marketable. But that pressure, it wasn't in his head. Others saw it too.
First of all, let's be very, very clear. It is possible that there isn't anything funnier than a guy in a dress. And if that's the case, then it might also be said that there's nothing funnier than a black guy in a dress. Okay, well, I watched all of my friends throughout my entire life be able to dunk a basketball, but not me. So everybody can't do everything. So, some of us make choices. I think it's not a biggest choice for others. I'm saying at the end of the day, Kevin doesn't have to worry about what people are going to say about him wearing a dress because of the long line of dress-wearing people before him.
Cat wasn't lying. When you don't play the fool, Hollywood plays you. And that's exactly what happened to Malcolm. It wasn't that he couldn't get work, it's that he refused to sell out to get it. Malcolm didn't just avoid bad roles, he actively spoke out. Through his podcast, Not All Hood, he called out the way black people are portrayed in the media. He wrote essays calling out white executives for controlling black images. He criticized misogyny in hip-hop and called for more love and accountability in the culture. He even said, "Our music is so destructive. We've normalized anti-blackness in our own lyrics." He knew that challenging the system might limit his success, but he did it anyway, because to him the truth was worth more than a paycheck. Now that he's gone, everyone wants to honor him. Networks are posting tributes, streaming services are hyping unreleased projects, celebrities are calling him a legend. But where were they before? Because when he was alive, they ignored him. He wasn't brand safe, he wasn't trying to fit in. Now that he can't speak for himself, suddenly he's safe to praise. Let's be real, Malcolm never begged for validation. But the silence from the industry while he was alive is loud now. It's like they waited until he couldn't speak up anymore, until he couldn't call out the hypocrisy. And now they package his legacy into feel-good posts and highlight reels. It's a pattern we've seen before. Nipsey, Chadwick, DMX. The world waits until you're gone to admit your greatness. And by then, it's too late to give flowers that actually matter. And that's how the game works. Hollywood doesn't uplift you when you're alive and principled. They wait until you're quiet, then rewrite the story on their terms. Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't fall off. He chose integrity over exposure. He lived with purpose. He spoke truth to power. And when it mattered most, he showed up for the people he loved. He could have chased clout. He could have watered himself down to fit in, but he didn't. And that's what made him dangerous. Not to people, but to a system that fears men who can't be bought. In an industry that rewards masks, Malcolm was one of the few who kept it real. And that's why so many people feel like we lost more than a man. We lost a mirror. He reminded us that authenticity still has value, even when it's inconvenient. He reminded us that you don't have to sell your soul to have impact, that you can be excellent and still be kind. And now, a new generation is watching, learning, grieving, questioning the narrative. So, some people die heroes, others live long enough to be forgotten. Malcolm broke that cycle. He lived with grace, and now in death, he's become something even bigger, a symbol of what Hollywood could never control. So maybe the question isn't how did he die? Maybe the better question is, Why did a man who stood for so much leave us in silence? And who benefits from that silence now? Let's not wait for approval to celebrate our own. Let's not wait for media headlines to define our leaders. Let's tell the truth loud, unapologetically. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's celebrate the kind of man we need more of, because the world may have waited too long to honor Malcolm-Jamal Warner, but we won't.